Hello, everyone, and welcome to this CESI Talks. We are here today with Pierre Chaussard. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Pierre Chaussard is a lawyer from the Dekkers and Chaussard law firm, and he's also a lawyer and a scientific associate at the UCL Faculty of Law. Today, we're here today as part of the project, which is WEP, Workers and the European Parliament. We want to bring to the attention of workers what is going on also in the Justice Department. We know that the European EU labor law covers two main areas, which are working conditions, so working hours, part-time, fixed-term work, posting of workers. And the second area is informing and consulting workers about collecting redundancy, transfers of company, etc. So I'm asking you, Pierre, our expert, which are the highlights of the recent case law of the European Court of Justice?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. I think the most important case concerns the working hours, because the European Court of Justice held two cases concerning working hours. Actually, it was two different cases, but the decision are the same, because the European Court of Justice decides to put some guidelines concerning what's exactly working hour. And that's very important, because in whole the European Union we have questions about the situation of people working during emergencies. The two cases are from 9 March 2021. It concerns, first of all, German firemen, and secondly, Slovenian worker from the television, from Slovenian television. So the questions were, when are these people working? And a question was for the fireman, that fireman, when is it working hours, when he's waiting for an intervention at home. So the fireman is at home, is waiting for an intervention due to emergency. He had to be in the intervention in 20 minutes. So is it working hours? For the Slovenian, it was slightly more difficult, because he was in a very weird situation, because he was waiting all the day for an intervention in mountain areas in Slovenia, and he had to intervene in less than 1 hour. The European Court of Justice decides that we have two big conditions to be in a working hour situation. First, it depends of the number of minutes, how many times you have to be in your job, and secondly, do you have frequently asking to intervene during your situation at home or in the place where you have to wait for an intervention. So it's very important for the workers, because it's the first time the European Court of Justice defined these two conditions for working time hours. So maybe you know that there is one big case in 2018 called Matzak case, holding for the first time that the situation of staying at home waiting for work could be working time, but here we have more precise answer to the how to determine if you are in the working time hours. So it's very important, but it could be interesting for people concerning all the firemen issues, but also for the medical issues, because doctors nurses and so on could be concerned for that kind of question.
Exactly. So what could be the implication in the future for workers in regards to the outcomes of the...
It means that employers have to respect a maximum of 48 hours of working hours per week. There is some exceptions for emergency, but the average in the European law is 48 hours. But the times you have to wait for work could be considered as working hours. So you cannot just let people working during 60, 70 hours waiting for work and only count the hours of work, of official works.
Official work, yeah. So maybe finally the time when you're actually waiting, being on call, is finally being counted.
Yes, indeed.
Have there been any other cases that recently that maybe we should highlight?
Actually, I'm not a specialist for the other European issues, but there is few cases concerning, questions of maintaining rights of workers in case of transfer of undertakings. Yeah, one of the main issues were concerning the situation of people working in two places. It's difficult for people when there is a transfer of undertakings, because sometimes you work in two places, but only one of the places are, I will say, transferred to another enterprise. So the European Court of Justice has to answer to that question. If you have two places and you only have one given to another enterprise, is it a transfer of undertaking pursuant to the European legislation? And the answer is yes. So you could be protected as a worker if you have two different places of work and only one transferred. And people, worker has the right to choose. So you can choose if you go to the new employer or if you stay at your first employer in that circumstances.
Exactly. Could I ask you maybe just one last question? We know that obviously regarding the Court of Justice, the initiatives need to be taken by the European Commission. There is not a lot that the European Parliament could do, but they can obviously steer public opinion. So raise awareness about cases. We know that the European Parliament right now, it's focusing on the right to disconnect. And so would that be in the labor law department? How do you see the future about the right to disconnect for workers?
That's a good question. It's very important, I think, to put an European framework concerning disconnection, because it's a new question. It was not a question from the 20th century. So I think it's important to put European standard to that, because if not, you will have problems, psychological problem for people, but also potential problem of discrimination between member states, because some country will be probably more liberal concerning that question. I think it's important to show to workers that the European law can be a good framework to protect people.
Absolutely.
I think it's important in that way.
Yes, as you said, it is important to build a framework for all the workers to have equal condition, equal and fair condition overall the European Union. Mr. Pierre Jossard, thank you very much for your time. It was very interesting. Maybe we could get updated later on if there is any other case law coming up we could focus on. I also advise everyone to go look up the CESI website, because there are some articles from Mr. Pierre Jossard that are very interesting about and more specific on what we talked about today. So thank you again very much for your time, and see you all soon.
Thank you. Bye.